The Island of the Dolls. A haunting legacy in the southern reaches of Mexico City lies a place of surreal beauty and ancient history, the floating gardens of Xochimilco. This vast network of canals and artificial islands, known as chinampas, is a vestige of the Aztec civilization, a place where vibrant, flower-adorned boats called trajineras carry tourists and locals alike through a watery maze. For most visitors, Xochimilco is a place of celebration, filled with the sounds of mariachi music, the bustle of floating food vendors, and the laughter of families enjoying a day on the water. It is a bright, colorful, and joyous experience. But if one travels deep enough into the labyrinthine back channels, the festive atmosphere begins to fade, replaced by a quiet, eerie stillness. Deep within this secluded part of the canals lies a small, unassuming island that has become the site of one of the world's most unsettling modern legends. It is a place that inspires both fascination and profound dread. Its name is La Isla de las Muñecas, the Island of the Dolls. A first glimpse of the island is enough to instill a lasting sense of unease. From the gnarled branches of its trees and the dilapidated walls of its small cabin hang hundreds upon hundreds of dolls. They are a silent, unblinking audience, their forms weathered by decades of sun and rain, their presence turning a tranquil island into a nightmarish landscape. The architect of this strange and macabre shrine was a man named Don Julian Santana Barrera. He was not a native of the island, but rather a man who chose a life of extreme solitude, leaving behind his wife and family in the 1950s to make this isolated patch of land his permanent home. Don Julian was, by all accounts, a recluse. He sought to live a simple, hermetic existence, separated from the noise and complexities of the modern world. He spent his days tending to the flowers and vegetables he grew on his chinampa, living off the land and trading his produce with the few boatmen who passed through these remote canals. For years he lived in near total isolation, the dark waters of the canals serving as a natural moat between his private world and the one he had left behind. But one day, a tragic discovery would shatter his solitude and set him on a path toward a lifelong, haunting obsession. The legend, as it has been told for decades, begins with a terrible discovery. Don Julian claimed to have found the body of a young girl who had tragically drowned in the murky canal that flowed alongside his island. The specific details of who she was or how she came to be there were unknown. The sight of the drowned child is said to have deeply disturbed Don Julian. He was unable to save her, and the image of her lifeless form became seared into his memory. He felt a profound sense of sorrow and responsibility, believing that her spirit was now bound to the place where she had died. Shortly after this grim discovery, another object came floating down the canal and caught his eye. It was a child's doll. In his grief-stricken mind, Don Julian immediately assumed it must have belonged to the little girl he had found. Driven by a desire to honor her memory and appease her restless spirit, he fished the doll out of the water. As a gesture of respect, he hung it from the branch of a tree on his island, creating a small, impromptu memorial for the lost soul. This single act was the beginning of it all. Don Julian soon became convinced that the girl's spirit was haunting him. In the quiet solitude of his island, he began to hear things in the dead of night. Mournful whispers carried on the wind, the sound of a woman weeping, and the faint footsteps of a child walking in the darkness. Terrified and believing he was being tormented by the grieving spirit, Don Julian decided that one doll was not enough. He came to believe that the dolls were not just memorials, but vessels of a sort, companions for the lonely spirit of the girl, and powerful talismans that could act as guardians for his island, protecting him from further sorrow. What began as a single offering born of fear and grief slowly spiraled into a consuming obsession that would dominate the next 50 years of his life. He became a collector of discarded dolls, driven by an urgent need to placate the spirit he felt all around him. His methods of acquisition were varied. He would spend his days scavenging, fishing dolls and their broken parts out of the canals. He would also search through the trash in nearby towns, gathering any abandoned dolls he could find and bringing them back to his island sanctuary. As his strange story began to spread, other people became part of his mission. Local boatmen, familiar with the eccentric island dweller, would trade him old dolls in exchange for his fresh vegetables. Some tourists, hearing the tale, began to bring dolls as offerings of their own. Crucially, Don Julian did not repair or clean the dolls he collected. He hung them exactly as he found them, in whatever state of decay they were in. Broken limbs, headless bodies, faces with missing eyes, and torsos covered in dirt and grime were all added to the growing, grotesque congregation. Over 5 decades, the island was transformed. A single doll grew into a collection of hundreds and eventually thousands. They were hung from every available surface trees, fences, clotheslines, and the walls of his small shack until the island itself became a singular, sprawling art installation of horror. To visit the island is to step into a scene from a dark fairy tale. The dolls stare down from every angle with vacant, glassy eyes. Some have faces cracked like old porcelain, while others have been bleached white by the sun. Many are covered in thick cobwebs with insects nesting in their hollow eye sockets. The atmosphere is not just visual, but auditory. The wind whistles through their hollow plastic heads, creating eerie, high-pitched sounds. The gentle rocking of the island's trees causes the dolls to swing and creak, a constant, unsettling motion accompanied by a chorus of soft, clacking noises. Visitors frequently report a palpable sense of unease. They speak of feeling watched by the countless pairs of eyes, of a heavy, oppressive sadness that permeates the air, and of the overwhelming feeling that they are intruding upon a place of deep and unresolved grief. Yet for Don Julian, this was his life's work. He lived peacefully amongst his decaying collection, speaking to the dolls and caring for them as if they were living children. In his mind, he was not a collector of objects, but the caretaker of the souls he believed inhabited them. Of course, there is a more skeptical side to this story. In recent years, members of Don Julian's own family have been interviewed and have claimed that the story of the drowned girl is a fiction. They maintain that no such discovery was ever made. This has led to an alternative theory, that Don Julian was not a man haunted by a ghost, but was simply a profoundly lonely individual. Perhaps suffering from a psychological ailment or simply crushed by his isolation, he may have invented the story of the girl to give meaning to his reclusive life and to his unusual hobby. It is possible the legend was born of practicality. As boatmen began to notice his strange collection, the story of the drowned girl may have been the explanation he offered, a narrative that was more compelling and understandable than simply admitting to an eccentric obsession with discarded dolls. The legend, however, was cemented forever by the final, mysterious chapter of Don Julian's own life. In 2001, at the age of 80, after spending half a century building his strange shrine, Don Julian was found dead. The circumstances of his death were chillingly poetic. His body was discovered by his nephew, drowned in the canal, floating in the murky water. He was found in the exact same spot where, 50 years prior, he had claimed to have discovered the body of the little girl. This final, eerie coincidence has become the capstone of the island's legend. Many believers are convinced that the girl's spirit, or perhaps the collective energy of the dolls themselves, finally lured their aging caretaker into the water to join them in their spectral world. Today, La Isla de las Muñecas is maintained by Don Julian's family. It has become a popular, albeit unsettling, tourist destination, drawing visitors from around the globe who are fascinated by its dark story. People still bring dolls to hang on the island, continuing the caretaker's bizarre legacy. Whether the island is truly haunted by the ghost of a drowned girl or is simply the powerful, Tangible result of one man's loneliness and obsession, its effect is undeniable. It remains a deeply disturbing and sorrowful place, a monument to a mystery that will likely never be solved, leaving all who visit with the lingering feeling that they have brushed up against something truly inexplicable.